Welcome back to another episode of that Boat Babe podcast with your favorite boat babe here, MaryAllison. I'm coming at you today from the cockpit. It is a chilly, chilly day, but because our cockpit turns into a sunroom, it's actually quite nice. I actually had to crack the windows because it got a little warm in here. I did have to wipe down all the dust off from up here. I haven't cleaned it out in a little while, and there's a little sheen of aluminum dust going on upstairs. This is like my safe haven. I journal from up here. I meditate up here. I'll do my medium readings up here. And obviously, I'm recording my podcast episode from up here. And so I like to keep this place clean and tidy. And I love the sunlight that comes in. But it has been one heck of a week. Let me just tell you. This has been testing the patience in my relationship, which is what we're going to discuss today. If your relationship is ready to own a boat, are you really, really ready for boat ownership? And are you actually ready to live on a boat, which can be totally different than the whole boat ownership process. But this week has been a lot. And I discussed a little bit about it last week. We still have our engine taken apart in my daughter's bed. I think I heard there was an update on shipping. We got new gaskets and a couple other new parts for the engine that I think we actually found out might not have been necessary to put it all back together, but it's fine. Better safe than sorry, and we're here right now anyways. And so the engine's still taken apart. And yeah, I'm like, okay, I think the drive shaft seal is still fine. I'm actually not sure if the steering is leaking right now because we're not able to move the boat. But let's hop back to last week's episode where I was discussing having my morning coffee, finally getting a 30-second conversation in with my husband, which is rare, and I thought the ice maker was making a funny noise, but unfortunately it was not the ice maker, it was our bilge pump. So we look down into the bilge, which is gigantic. I can have 2 inches of water and it's about 40 gallons. I mean, it's a very huge bilge. It is not like a tiny bilge where you're like, let me just get the little shop vac and suck that out. No, my bilge is gigantic. It's about chest high when you're standing in it. And it can hold hundreds and hundreds of gallons. So my bilge pump comes on, total red flag. I never ever have a wet bilge. And you'll hear boat owners say, oh, it's a boat. Water's in the bilge. It happens. Okay, there's 2 sides to that. One side is your air conditioning condenser pans are draining into the bilge. Some owners say that's a good thing. Oh, I have water in the bilge. That means my air conditioning's running and it's working. I don't like that explanation. I think it's stupid, honestly. I had another fellow captain say that to me and I was like, wait, that's your excuse for your AC running? Okay. My solution for that was to extend the lines, the hoses that came from the condensing pans all the way to my sump box so I have a completely dry bilge all the time. You've got the other side where people say, water's supposed to be on the outside of the boat, not the inside of the boat. And I side with that group. So fully believe you can run with a dry bilge. I've actually found during this past week why I do have water in my bilge recently, and it's from the rain that's coming down my mast. I have a aluminum base pan at the base of my mast. They re-stepped my mast probably within the last 15 years, so it's in great shape and down there. And but the hose that ran from the pan down into the bilge got stopped up. So it was running over the side. I was like, I don't know where this water is coming from, but it just turns out today I'm going to go get a new hose and I'm going to, because I now have access to the bilge, I am going to run that hose from the pan at the bottom of the mast beside the water tank, beside the diesel tank, and then back to the sump box. So that's not going to be an issue anymore, and that'll just eliminate any type of moisture problem in the bilge. So back to sitting on the couch with my coffee, we looked in the bilge, freaking out. How do we have this much water? Like, this is huge. So we were going through everywhere. The first thing, obviously, to do when you have any kind of unnecessary, unwanted water in the bilge is check the through holes. So I pulled up all the floors. And if you don't know where your through holes are, that would be like day one of boat ownership, by the way. So go through, checked all the through holes. Everything's fine. Hasn't had any rain. The next thing I was curious of, okay, this has to be fresh water from the water tank, but I wasn't willing to taste it at the time. I didn't think that was necessary because I could continue to hear it dripping. And so it took about an hour and a half, and I had taken up the last panel where my water maker is. And I looked under there and I said, that this is it. I hear it. I hear it right here, but it's not the water maker. It is the aluminum water tank. We have a 125-gallon water tank, full tank. It's not split in two, and it is original. The previous owners had removed the tank from the floor, and you can work on it in the salon downstairs. So they had worked on it, cut the bottom off where it had been corroding because, unfortunately, my boat had been run with a wet bilge for long enough to where it corroded the bottom of that tank. So they cut off about 25 gallons worth of water and re-seamed, redid the bottom of the tank, put it back, totally fine. Actually, that was in 2016. So what was that, 8 years ago? So it lasted about 8 years, and the seams just started to go. They started to pop, started to crack. There were, little puncture holes everywhere, and it was starting to corrode. It wasn't even sitting in the water, but the problem was that because it's such a huge tank, the weight of the water was actually bulging out the bottom of the tank. And that was where it was causing the seams to crack. And so thankfully, I had called around town, and a guy named Dustin, what is his business name? Pelican. I don't know. If you're in the Orange Beach, Pensacola, Mobile area and you need any aluminum work done, type in, what would it be? Welding Dustin Pelican. Those are the three things that I would type in with Google or DuckDuckGo to find this guy. But he actually came out that day, the same day that I found the leak in the water tank. He came out, checked out the tank. We weren't pulling it up or anything yet, but he was able to kind of give us an idea of what he could do, cost, etc. So Seth and I realized, okay, move everything onto the houseboat. Now we've got a big maintenance issue. And it took up, because our tank is so big, it takes up basically the entire living room space. So we knew we needed to transition to the houseboat as best as we could. So that's where we've been. And coming from this mom, captain, overwhelmed-ish, psychic medium, whatever I am already, cleaning is like my pet peeve. I kind of grew up in a house where like nothing was ever touched. It didn't really look lived in. And I like my stuff that way. Unfortunately, with a family, it doesn't really work that way. Everything gets touched. Every blanket gets unfolded. Every pillow moves. I don't understand it, but things move. And it seems like after 24 hours, they all move on their own. So that brings me to the subject today. Is your relationship ready for boat ownership? And we're going to talk about two types of ownership. We've got friends. They've got their, what is it? Like one of those funky little Grady Whites. It's not the actual awesome, like cruising Grady White that wants to go offshore. This one's more, it's kind of a mix between a chaparral, it looks like an older chaparral, and like more like a family style boat, but it can go offshore, but it wouldn't be something that I would spend a lot of time out there on. So that is one type of boat ownership. The husband goes out, he buys the boat, the wife starts to realize, why is the money going to the boat that's sitting in the backyard? This is annoying. We never end up taking the boat out. We hear of that a lot. But usually, most of the boat maintenance, the boat upkeep, storage, docking, trailering, et cetera, is done by the husband. And, it's like, okay, whatever. The wife doesn't have to do a whole lot. A lot of times she's just packing up the kids, they're making it their thing. And thankfully for a lot of couples, especially down here, they both enjoy the boat. It's something they both like to do. And that type of boat ownership is more just like money going towards the boat, but it's equally used as the family. A lot of times I see couples, they don't exactly know how to do a lot of the maintenance, the upkeep. They don't even really care to wash it a whole lot. It's just kind of like having a golf cart. It's that one extra thing, like the other toy, that you've got to play with. The best part about those boats, memories are created that will never disappear, especially for children. Having that kind of boat growing up in my life was so valuable because somehow, I mean, it's my favorite thing to do is driving boats. And so boat, weekend boating, I guess, or vacation boating started for me when I was young. And I had tons of great experiences. I would take my umbrella and my Barbies and I was set for the entire day. And being out with the family, it just created like a big bond. And I also realized like this is where I feel the most comfortable. Fast forward, if you've heard my story, we got a 19-foot center console Key West. Same kind of deal. My mom was the mom that packed the lunches, if she remembered, kind of thing. Dad would pack the cooler full of beer, and then I ended up driving, and that's how I learned how to drive. And it was just natural for me to, and I actually really enjoyed being, and I knew this at a young age, I actually enjoyed being able to provide an experience for somebody else and allow them to relax and allow them to have fun. And what it taught me was how to be a really great boat driver. So let's talk about the other type of boat ownership. This would be like what I'm doing. Living on your sailboat, living on your trawler, living on your cruiser. You hear a lot of people lately talk about, oh, we sold everything and we now own a boat and we're traveling around the world. I'm going to tell you right now, like, that sounds really easy, but there's a lot of parts that are missing from that. And the first being that this is a very small space compared to a house. And I'm going to tell you my favorite thing about living on a boat is that it's really, as much as I can't stand the whole cleaning aspect, it is a lot cleaner. It's a lot easier to clean than a house. Maybe changing the sheets are annoying, or you're like, why is the dust over here gathering? Like, it does get dustier than a house. But it takes me literally 10 minutes. And then I moved on to, moving on to, polishing the wood downstairs or waxing the walls. And, there's a lot more that you can do in such a small space versus a house. Like cleaning the baseboards of a house, that just, by the end of the day, your knees are just shot. And that's why you hire a maid to do those types of things. But boat ownership will definitely put a wear on your relationship. And I have experienced that lately for sure. So I do have I usually just kind of go off the top of my head on this podcast, but I actually tried to have some bullet points to try to go off of. So if I'm stuttering, just that's because I'm not used to reading anything. But whether you're dreaming of living aboard or just thinking about the weekends on the water, boat ownership will test your teamwork and patience like nothing else. I've heard that if you can go through a construction project at your house, then your relationship is solid. And I'm just, like I said last week, BS on that. Been there, done that. Done an entire construction project, flipped a house. What did we lose? 50, 70 grand on it? That ain't nothing to what we're doing right now. So I'll never forget the time when I bought my boat and Seth bought a house. That was where I saw the disconnect. I was like, shoot, his dream is that, my dream is this. We had a really hard time at blending our dreams together because I never wanted to live in a house. I've always dreamt of having that white picket fence tiny cottage, but I never ever saw that as a permanent residence. I just always saw it as somewhere that I would stay when I would go visit family. somewhere with the woods and the squirrels and the owls and, a little piece of paradise in the woods. But my main goal was to be able to take my house with me everywhere I got to explore, because I just think there's so much in this world that is meant to be seen. I feel like when you wake up on a boat, every morning is a beautiful painting in the sky. I mean, I woke up early yesterday to take my son to coffee. We have a weekly coffee date. I looked over the stern. The sky was pink, and then we had a bright full moon right above the clouds. It was breathtaking, to the point where I actually had to make myself stop and just stare at it because it was so beautiful. And then I turn around and I look east. Oh, I don't know why I'm blurry in the camera if you're watching this on the camera. If you looked east, the sun was rising and it was magnificent. I mean, I was like, this is why I'm here. This is why I'm living on a dusty boat right now. This is why the water tank is, hanging in the living room. This is why I'm going back and forth between two boats and about to lose my mind with forgetting underwear and where's the coffee cream kind of questions. Because we get to have the most beautiful, majestic scenery wherever we are, and we get to experience Mother Nature like nowhere else on the planet, especially, if you're living in a house. Of course, there's people out there that love the sunsets over Arizona and they live up in the mountains with the snow. 10 out of 10, completely, we're on the same page. Yes, I agree. That place is magnificent too. I just love that we're able to take the boat, and go to a different anchorage and then meet new people. It's like vacation land, which is all I've ever wanted. Okay, teamwork. This is huge. Can you divide the tasks equally? And I'm just going to go off of my own relationship. We've got 2 captains living in this house, and it makes it really difficult. I'm not the typical housewife. I don't enjoy the housewife things. I've got friends that are boat wives. They live the dream. They just get to chill. The husband does the maintenance. That's his thing. So they're busy decorating and sewing and getting the baby room ready. And as much as I love those things, I actually really love the masculine parts of it too. So that has definitely made it difficult in my relationship. But from what I have seen, if you are able to divide tasks evenly, because that's naturally how y'all were able to do them while living in a house, then you should be able to transfer those routines, the basics, cooking, cleaning, who's doing the laundry, who's driving the boat, who's anchoring, who's on the bow when we anchor, who's tying the lines, who unplugs the electricity, who's turning on the generator. These are the big tasks of what's my role, what's your role. And if you have 2 A-type personalities, it is very hard, first of all, to even be the person that delegates who's doing the tasks, because usually you want to do the same tasks is what I found out. But the tasks have got to be delegated or it becomes a dangerous situation. Communication. How do you handle stressful situations? Just like we were out at sea, and at sea, it makes me sound like we were actually far offshore. We were out in front of Destin, and it's a really stressful situation for me, to see that the drive shaft seal looks like it's about to fall apart. I come upstairs, and that situation was handled really well. Seth looked to me for what we were going to do. At that moment, he knew my experience. He knew my understanding and knowledge of the boat. And he said, what do we do? And I had to make that call to turn around. So that was great on his part, instead of butting in and, no, I think we need to do this, or what if we do this, and throwing out ideas. Because a lot of what I do on the boat is I'm led by my intuition. And if you have somebody in the household that is led by their intuition, my suggestion is to always go first with that suggestion and then work your way off of that. You know, in the situation offshore, I could not reach anybody in Panama City. I couldn't get any yard. I couldn't get any captains in my area that knew Panama City. I couldn't get any sailors that I knew that had sailed to Panama City. So that option was out. And so I just knew deep down, like, we've got to turn around. And I'm so glad that we did. The situation turned out, it was very stressful, but I mean, it was easy. It was easy to get into, you know, Pensacola Marine Center. I will never be able to change that in my mind. It was easy to get in with Brandon Hall at Pensacola Marine Center. It was easy to haul out. The guys were fantastic. The job went well until it didn't. And hence why the engine is in my daughter's bed. So, yeah, it's about delegating the tasks, communicating on an even keeled level. And that is something that I struggle with. I struggle with that in my relationship because this just even goes back to marriage in general. How did you watch your parents communicate? So my parents over communicate. They're best friends. My dad is, you know, the head of the household, but when it comes to research or, oh God, figuring out problems, my mom she just knocks it out of the park every time. And as children, we grew up just listening and soaking up so much knowledge, you know, at the dinner table or car rides. Like, there was really very rarely a dull, quiet moment. There was always some type of, you know, my parents are very inquisitive. They're always curious. They're always, what about this? And what do you think about this? And I can't believe this and blah, blah, blah. There's just a lot of talk. So there was never a lot of quiet. Well, for example, with my husband, total opposite. You know, his mom was the head at the household, hence why he married me. And his dad was very passive, not a big part of the family when it came to any type of emotion. So it is very difficult for us to, you know, I want to over communicate, and he sees that as pressure, maybe. I think that's still to this day what I'm trying to figure out, because I just see it as talking, hence why I'm on a podcast. You know, I love talking. I love working things out. I love figuring things out with somebody. Okay, let's talk about the vision. You've got that shared vision, right? If you're going to do the weekender thing, that's cool. Sounds like your shared vision is, we live near the water. We want to go out on the water on the weekends. And when we are living in our house, we're living in our house. Sounds great. So the shared vision, are your goals aligned with how much time and money to invest in boating? And here's my husband right now. Honey, do you want to get in and sit in and talk about relationships on the podcast for a second?
Oh, I'd be honored. Thrilled. I was just coming to paint.
Welcome to the podcast, Seth.
Thanks.
This is your
Debut?
yeah, this is your debut podcast episode. So, this is my husband, Seth. I was just talking about how communication and teamwork and basically having a shared vision can really make, you know, your relationship, it'll basically give you an idea if your relationship is even ready for boat ownership. So I was just talking about shared vision and how, and I kind of did touch on this just a little bit ago, because I mentioned when I bought the boat and then you bought a house. I mean, two totally different shared visions. And it took years for us to come together to share the vision that we actually had prior to Hurricane Irma. So prior to that storm, I owned a condo, but boat ownership and living on a boat was my thing. Seth is a pilot. He had a great job down island, flying and island hopping. So living on a boat there would have been normal because everybody did it. We just happened to live on land together, but living on a boat was never, it was like, if we were to have a boat fall in our lap, we'd be like, oh great, okay, we can move on to the boat. It wouldn't have been a problem. But after Hurricane Irma, and then after having Piper, and then we were really stuck in the States going through a really stressful situation for a long time, years. So now that that's dissolved, everybody's healing from that, and the kids have gotten older. The biggest thing for us, and I've talked about this before, I think we talked about this more on the YouTube video, was looking ahead at life and turning around and saying, I'm so glad I spent every day of my life doing X, Y, and Z. And I think for Seth, I know for me, I decided I was able to see all the kids' birthdays every time. I mean, morning, evening, and night was with the kids, especially now that we homeschool. And from a parent point of view, Seth never got to see that because he was constantly flying. And basically, we had gotten to the point of, okay, do you want to just turn around and say, wow, I'm glad I've flown a G450 for the last X amount of years, but bummer, I missed so many things with the kids. What are your thoughts on that?
That little bit, just my thoughts on that little bit. Okay. Yeah, shared vision on a boat, absolutely. Communication being key for sure. You know, I think, everybody's path is going to be a little different to boat ownership and all the above the way we did it. Yeah, I mean, in my defense, a house is great when a hurricane comes, not to be only have a boat. So, but, there's obviously there's a lot bigger background to that as well. But, I even look at it, shared vision. You definitely want to make sure you're on the same page, right? You want to make sure, hey, this is how it's going to be. Make sure you know how it is. Watch our YouTube channel. You can see exactly how it's going to go. Living on the boat together. So on the boat, living on a boat. So yeah, I mean, make sure you both understand and say, okay, I'm ready. I'm in for this. And yeah, I mean, it took us some time to get there, but I'm here. I'm all in, and I'm just, I don't care whatever problems we ever are gonna have, but I am just happy that we're all together as a family. So,
Sweet.
communication is definitely very key on how things are. Even in the middle of the boat projects you might be on when you're living on a boat, it's key to communicate what something looks like. I mean, I felt from what I remember, maybe some of the paint jobs, something like that. Just some projects. Obviously, we've done a lot, but you can have one thing in your vision, one thing in your mind, and your wife or other could have something totally different. And but as long as y'all communicate about every step, then it's like, oh, okay, you can decide whose vision is going to work out better, and then you start, and that's called communication. So it works out really well. I mean, it's happened to us multiple times where I was thinking one thing and MaryAllison told me another, and I was like, that makes way more sense. Absolutely. So yeah, but she also told me not to paint the bilge perfectly. We're never going to see it again. And I'm kind of a realist in this situation because I have a feeling with the way this boat's been going, I'm going to be seeing it very soon. So might as well make it just right. So, my thoughts.
So, Seth, let's go to that topic. So the water tank failure it's been an issue. We haven't been able to wash our clothes. I'm actually trying to organize the V-berth.
Who needs clothes?
Yeah, who needs some new clothes? I am like, it's fine. I'm wearing his socks from when he went to Tennessee, no underwear, and a shirt I wore yesterday, and pants.
That's fine with me.
So, Seth is really good at, let me tell you what I'm bad at. I don't do anything with woodworking. I've talked about that before. Everybody that does woodworking has lost a finger, and I just don't want to join that category. Thankfully, Seth has all of his, but he is fine doing that kind of stuff. So right now we have our aluminum water tank hanging from a frame. It's not an A-frame, but it would be considered, I guess, an A-frame.
It is the Willis Special frame of all frames.
It's what it is, yes. And so it turns out our tank wasn't actually as heavy as we thought, but I like how it's reinforced enough so Seth can do pull-ups. And so we've hung the water tank in the middle of the ceiling. Dustin came out and redid the welds.
With Pelican Towers.
That's it, Pelican Towers. Dustin with Pelican Towers here in Alberta, Alabama. So the the bilge just needed some help. I realized, the water from the mast has been up against the wood. That's the padding between the fiberglass and the tank, etc., etc. We are painting it, just like I've said. If you've followed our YouTube videos, I paint anything that I can get to. I repaint it just because why not? It'll take out any odors. You get the old paint off. There's no reason not to. So that's what we've been doing today. We epoxied some parts of the bottom where it was just barely delaminating. It was very minimal, but let's go into tips for strengthening your relationship for boat life. Like we were just talking about, if you can successfully live in a home together, just going to a smaller space it's a lot. It really is. Privacy is an issue, I think. I think the best part about our boat is that we have the enclosed cockpit. So if I want to get away and have my time, I'm literally outside. I think also for a family, one thing that we've now kind of had to grow accustomed to is like all four of us sitting on the couch and watching a movie. We can't really spread out across the room. Like we all literally have to lay on each other to watch a movie, but those are like super superficial things. So a good tip would be spend some extended time on a family or a family's boat or a friend's boat, or even if you can rent one. A lot of places have houseboats for rent. If you live on a lake, I would suggest doing a charter. There are some amazing charter companies out in the Bahamas, and I'm hoping there is one that I would suggest. I follow a handful of people, obviously on Instagram, and I found it. Okay, yes. If you are looking for a charter, I follow Sail Nadiya. Go on Instagram, Sail, Sail, Nadiya. So I have followed them for a couple years. This guy actually owned his own sailboat, and I think he was just doing the whole circumnav kind of thing like everybody else. But Nadiya Sail Charters is a great way to see how your relationship is going to go on a boat. He's in the Bahamas and he goes out of Key West a lot, but like right now he's in the Exuma. But the way that the families are structured, I don't know. His Instagram is one of my favorite to follow because it's not as like top notch, chefy. Everything's taken care of for you. It is like everything he does is like homegrown. He always hires a really great in-house chef. But there's just something where it has a really good family feel. So if you wanted to charter, definitely check them out on Instagram and give them a shout out. Tell them that I suggested that y'all do a trip with him. But also one thing that I do is I follow a lot of sailing families on Instagram. And then when I find a friend is interested in living on a boat or living in this lifestyle, I just say, go follow Sailing Banana Pancakes. Go follow, what's the one that we both follow? Everyday Saturday.
Breaking Waves.
Breaking Waves is great.
She's pretty new.
They don't have kids, so that would be a really good one to follow if you don't have kids. Yep. Sailing Vessel Jubel, which I think it's called Jubel. Jubel? Jubel?
I would probably say Jubilee. I don't know.
Jubilee. SV. Lee.
The J boat.
The J. Okay, on Instagram it's SVJUBEL. So they're a great resource if you wanted to ask Lee any questions. Her husband is brilliant, and she is the perfect boat wife if that is what you're looking to do. I swear. I love her so much. Okay, divide the responsibilities. We talked about that a little bit. So whenever we take the boat out, I'm driving the boat for the most part, in and out of the dock. Seth is great with the electronics, though. So he's one to do autopilot, recalibrate the autopilot, anything having to do with, redoing the electrical downstairs. When it comes to anchoring, he's up on the bow, and I'm screaming my head off because we keep forgetting to use our walkie-talkies. So delegate certain tasks. That makes living on a boat a lot easier. This is one thing we don't do, and I honestly think it would probably help our relationship. Regular check-ins. Scheduling time to talk about how things are going, both with the boat and with each other.
That's a good idea.
We have friends that live on their tiny little it's like a Ponga style catamaran that they actually built in a yard right here. One of the last conversations I had with them, they have regular check-ins about their marriage and like where each of them are planning to go. And the way they were talking about it was actually really cool because it kept each of their independence. And basically it was like where their paths don't come together, they agree on it and they go, okay, well, how can we make this work for each of us instead of getting, resentful or frustrated that the path isn't coming together anymore. It's like, oh, okay, you're kind of wanting to branch out and doing this. Well, I want to branch out and do this. Let's just do that. And then like see how it goes. And they've both been able to live independently. So that's a suggestion. And that's something what do you think about that thought? Having regular scheduled check-ins.
I like regular scheduled check-ins. That's a good idea. I'd say once a week would probably be good. Do you think or once a month?
I don't know. I have a hard time with this because like I grew up where we had dinners at the table every night and like my parents like I said, were over communicative. So if you grew up like that, it might be kind of awkward to do like check-ins because I feel like every day is a check-in. But I feel like with our life, because of the kids...
Yeah, this is talking about just me and you, though.
I think that it would be a good idea for us.
Kids. Now, a family meeting, I think, would be a different, separate thing, though. I think that'd be a separate thing.
Yeah, so like actual check-ins between each other would be a really good idea.
Yeah.
That's what I would suggest. So I'm curious, what has been the biggest challenge for you and your partner out on the water? DM me at That Boat Babe on Instagram. I'm always talking and chatting in the comments. Share this episode with your friends. If anybody lives on a boat or if they've wanted to live on a boat, I hope this helps them figure out or kind of navigate what that looks like. And I would also love to share y'all's stories in the next episode. If you want to be featured on the podcast, you can reach out to me. Just do it on the Instagram. I'm on there all the time. I think it's a great idea. I would love to chat. I would love to hear your stories and be able to share them here. And in next week's episode, do you think we'll be sailing?
I don't know. Yes, we will. Wednesday. So I've got to finish this and we got to get the water tank in today because he needs his come-along back that we borrowed. So
okay.
We're going to go finish this today.
Okay.
And then it'll be time to put floors back together and the engine back together. The head gasket is out for delivery today, so we should get that in and be able to start putting the motor back together tomorrow night, whatever. So.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So that is hopefully where we're going to be heading next week. We will be following up with how the engine went, whether we've saved it or not. But I guess we'll find out. And I think the leaky water tank is going to be totally fine. I think that'll be really good. But anyway, thank y'all so much for tuning in today. I'm glad y'all got to meet Seth.
Yeah. All right. Nice to meet everybody.
And I can't wait to share an amazing dinner with you out on a tropical island. Let's head to the Bahamas together and, buddy boat across the...
world. Just say the world. Let's go everywhere.
Yeah, we're going to go everywhere together. Okay, I love y'all. Let's catch up on Instagram. Follow us on YouTube if you haven't. And if you're looking for your must-haves that you need for your boat, check out That Boat Babe on Amazon. We have an amazing storefront just set up for you for everything that you need to enjoy this life like we do. Okay, I will talk to y'all next week. I love you. Bye.